Here on Treaty 7 territory, nestled in the Rocky Mountains with the mighty Bow River at an altitude of 1,309 meters. Born from coal dust in 1884 and ever-changing, this is Canmore, and we are Canmorites, and this is the Canmorite Podcast. Let's go! Hey there, it's me, Jeff Maw, and welcome back to the Canmorite. It is May 1st, 2025, and it's been a momentous week here in Canada and the Bow Valley. So, federal election, it did happen just a few days ago, and, I think it's probably not a massive surprise to a lot of people, but here, in the newly minted Yellowhead riding, once again, it went Conservative. And I have not had a chance yet to have the winner, William Stevenson of the Conservative Party, be on the podcast. We did reach out a whole bunch of times during the campaign trail, and sadly at one point we almost had an interview set up, but then the poor guy got sick. Regardless, I have another request for interview with his campaign manager. I really hope, over the next little while we can get William here on the podcast, get to know him a little bit better, and just see how he is going to really truly represent the interests of the Bow Valley. So moving on from the election, the other big piece is, and I am super happy and excited about this, the Livability Tax survived the judicial review, and it will be coming. The Livability Tax is a huge piece. I have a lot more thoughts to say about it, but I think it deserves its own sort of episode, and so that'll be coming back down the pipe. Now, moving on, this next Tuesday, because Canmore never has a shortage of things to take care of, we have a massive, big public hearing. And the public hearing is on the Downtown Area Redevelopment Plan. So this plan has been in process for multiple years now, and it's a big piece because this plan, the consequences are huge. It shapes the outline and the potential of over the next few decades on how the downtown will become. And the town has done a couple years of engagement with it. This has been a big piece that was a bit of a focus at the previous 2021 election, which kind of goes to show you how complex this is, that it takes this many years to get it forward. And if you want to check out the plan, I'll put the link on the show notes. But essentially, it's called Connect Downtown Canmore. If you do a quick web search, you can find it. And the document itself is big. And when it comes to public hearings, when it comes down to decisions, this is one of those things that I think as a rookie councillor, I kind of struggled with it a bit and how to make decisions. So I want to go a little bit deeper into my process of making decisions. And probably a lot of this was informed in probably one of the most helpful conversations I had as a rookie councillor. And that was with a councillor not in Canmore, but in Banff. And that's my friend Grant Canning. And I remember talking to Grant a few years back. I'm like, Grant, you've been a councillor in Banff for like multiple terms now, and I kind of like how you work. How is it that you make decisions? And he's like, well, Jeff, I kind of think of a decision, it kind of sits on a stool, and that stool has 3 legs. And I'm kind of like staring at like a 3-legged stool. And he's like, yeah, the decision sits on the stool, and those 3 legs are, one is advice from the administrative staff for the town. And then the second leg of the stool is public sentiment and engagement. And then the third leg of the stool is my own set of values and beliefs and life experiences. And then, so Jeff, what I'll do is I'll take those 3 pillars and weight them and try to come forth with a decision. And I thought that was actually pretty helpful, and it actually made a lot of sense. And I'll kind of tie that back to my own world as well. For myself, as a councillor, what happens is that first leg of the stool, the advice of the administration, I definitely give that a lot of value. The reports that I read, they can be massive. Like I've alluded to before, but sometimes the reports I'll get week in, week out will be in the hundreds of pages. And these reports are thoughtfully written, right? There's tons of information there from the town staff. They're talking the ins and outs, potential consequences, alternatives, and they also come forward with a recommendation as well. And I got to say, sometimes that recommendation, it makes a lot of sense, but sometimes, I'll weigh that and I'll change or have a different mindset. But I do, at the end of the day, value that report. Often it is coming from staff members that have They've gone to school for these topics. They have subject matter expertise. They have been working for the town, in many cases, a long, long time, and they have that understanding and interlay of all the various parts that make up a decision, plus all the various parts that are coming down from other decisions that would influence it as well. So the administrative leg of the stool, when it comes to me making a decision, that is a big deal. Now, the second leg of the stool, and I think this is a big one because we're in a democracy and you voted for us, is my own opinions, values, and life experiences that I bring. I think when it comes to election time, people try to vote for candidates that have a certain set of values and beliefs that resonate with them. And so I'm one of those folks, and I'm going to bring to bear all of my thoughts and experiences towards the decision. And at the same time, I'm also going to talk with my other fellow councillors because they also bring to bear their own life experiences and values as well. And I think that's also probably what makes, in my mind, municipal politics the best level of politics, because we do not have parties, right? I have fellow councillors that are quite different than me. For example, like one of my favorite councillors, Karen Marr, she is definitely more conservative than I am. I'm definitely a bit more of a lefty, but pretty much every single decision, I will talk with Karen and she'll bring an insight or a different level of understanding or just something different to a point, and it kind of turns my mind. And I think she would probably say the same too. So rather than kind of falling down into these like party lines, left versus right, I do feel when we have a mix of people on council and I have the other opinions of my councillors, I can also be, confident that I'm not in groupthink, but I am making a decision that, like, for my own mind when I vote is really helpful. And then the third leg of the stool, and sometimes this is the bit of the wobbliest leg of the stool, it's public engagement, right? This is kind of me looking at the sort of stuff that's coming in my inbox, the sort of stuff that I'm seeing in public sentiment, and just how am I hearing from the community about various topics. And engagement has recently, I think, gone kind of more divisive, even more than before, more polarizing than before. And in some ways, I just wanted to say a couple thoughts on it, because engagement and how you engage with your elected officials, how you engage with your councillors can have, when you do it right, can actually have a big piece of helping me shape a decision. And one thing that I think people, when they think about engagement, is like quantity. Quantity is the thing. Flood the zone. We'll just keep putting in like lots and lots and lots of like engagement. And quantity does have a piece in my mind, but quantity also has to be balanced with quality. Case in point, petitions. During my term, I've seen petitions with like hundreds of names. And you know what? I put the quality of that engagement to just a little bit above worthless. Why? Because the effort it takes to craft a petition and to get someone to sign a petition, it's pretty darn low. I look at that list of names on the petition. I might know some of those names. At the same time, I don't even know if like all those people on that petition that signed it, do they even live in Canmore? Or even, do those people, did they sign it? Did they even really think about it? Like, I've heard stories of people getting harassed, sign my petition, and they're like, whatever. And they just sign, and then they move on. Another piece of engagement that I don't think is super great is anonymous websites. This seems to be a bit of a new form of strategy coming up lately in the term. I've seen some websites for like Eckloff Park. I've seen also a website for Save Downtown Canmore Parking. And, those sites are pretty slick looking. But at the same time, they don't really hold a lot of value to me, because when I go to those sites, and believe me, I check the sites out, they are anonymous. Okay. So if you're going to put a position forward and make a website and yet be gutless enough that you don't even have the courage to put your name and identify who you are on that website, not so great. So I've gotten a lot of, form letters from sites that are anonymous, and at the same thing, I bank those into that same garbage can. Well, maybe garbage can is not quite right, but that same level of value as petitions. Because who knows who's making this website? Maybe you're some outside group. Maybe you're from somewhere else. there's no accountability there. So I just don't really care that much. Moving on with engagement, there's other times where, and I've seen this in public hearings, I've also seen this in previous meetings where people, book time to sit down with me personally, have a one-on-one, and sometimes those can be really productive, sometimes not. I do think when they are productive ones, the person speaks to me in a calm, measured way, they have their points, they have their concerns, we can talk back and forth, and often, those in-person meetings, they're a little more time consuming, but they're valuable and they're helpful, right? Because I think sometimes those moments where you're back and forth, eye to eye, reading the body language, having a chance to scratch a little bit deeper, that's a big deal. Another thing when it comes to engagement is, in general, civility. Civility is not something that's really been going on the up and up. If anything, if you chart civility and kindness when it comes to working with folks, it seems to be going down. And one of these examples is like typically what I see in, say, our local newspaper, The Outlook. Letters to the editor, sometimes I read them. I got to be honest, a lot of times I try not to because my life is pretty stressful and I find that I can be pretty reactive. And those letters to the editor often are wrong. Like they're factually incorrect. But at the same time, as counselors, what are we going to do? Am I going to take the time to write a rebuttal letter? Right? And maybe cross my fingers it gets printed. And by that point, that's like a week down the road. Which kind of leads to this idea that maybe down the road on the Canmore podcast, myself, perhaps other counselors, etc., we'll kind of take a look at some of these letters and speak to them. And so winding this back towards the engagement piece and the subtopic at hand, the Downtown Canmore ARP, I saw a letter on the Rocky Mountain Outlook website today, and I just got to talk to it. And the person that wrote this letter, I'll spare them the embarrassment of putting their name on the podcast. Maybe that might be the same down the road. And she was talking about this Downtown Canmore ARP. And there's an opening line here, and it says, and I'll just read this verbatim. Okay, letter, alarm set in on Canmore Downtown Development Plan. And she goes, listening to council and some town employees might make one wonder if they fully read the plan. Okay, stop there. I gotta say, that is so incredibly insulting to put that in a letter. First off, I'm going to defend the people that work at the town because they have read the plan. If anything, those town employees have been working on the plan for multiple years. It is their job, right? And those poor guys, they just get a beating. Do I think they're right all the time? No, but to say that the town employees fully read the plan, wrong. They have completely read the plan. But I think the other part that really hurts, and I'm going to be honest, this hurts, implying that counselors did not read the plan, that is so beyond the pale. Speaking for myself and my other fellow counselors, we have bled for this thing. We take this hyper seriously. Everything is read. And to just come in and to just start off and just throw that grenade in the room, to think we are so incompetent or so just phoning it in to have not read the plan, wow. And, we're human. That stings. And, you got to wonder if that's the way you're going to play when you come forward with future levels of engagement, when you come forth, maybe even in a public hearing. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, wow, that's the person that wrote the letter like that. And I get it. You're completely allowed to not agree with me. In fact, I respect the fact that people have various strong opinions. And I also have to highlight that when we come forward to the public hearing, the Downtown Canmore Redevelopment Plan, the ARP, it is a draft. Draft means it's not final. Draft does not mean that it's necessarily perfect. Draft does not mean this is exactly what's going to move forward. And so, chances are things will change. But just because you don't like the draft doesn't mean you should start slinging mud and trying to throw people under the bus. And when I speak with them down the road, maybe not, when I see them in front of me, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, may the bridges you burn light your way. So having all said that was a little bit of a mini rant there, but I just feel it's been, a couple years of getting beat up for no reason. And I just wanted to kind of clear that piece. So just in recap, this coming up Tuesday, we have a public hearing. Please, if you care about the downtown, I think a lot of people do, check out the website, read the plan. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The plan is big because the vision is big and what matters is big. It's like many, 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 many pages, but at least it'll give you insight that the things that I read. And if you have thoughts about it, please bring it forth. Maybe come to the public hearing, write a letter soon, attend via Zoom. But I find if you're kind of respectful and you're trying to be productive, that's going to go a long way. Okay, so that's me, Jeff, finishing up with this quick episode of the Canmore Right, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon, and stay tuned for more episodes. Be well.